Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Ill Will. It's your street photographer's favorite street photographer, and today we're going to tackle a issue that is I don't know, some photographers know what they're talking about, some don't. I'm not a pro photographer. I didn't go to school to study photography. Everything that I've learned about photography has come from YouTube, and I just got there in the streets and I just started shooting, and over the past 4 or 5 years I've built a business for myself. And today we're going to talk about one of the elements of the exposure triangle, and that is ISO. I'm gonna do a 3-part series where we're talking about the 3 different elements of the exposure triangle, which is ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. If you don't know already, my name is Ill Will. I am a street photographer in Seattle, Washington right now, but I'm actually based out of Augusta, Georgia. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, go ahead and do that at Ill Will Media, and also here on YouTube, go ahead and just hit the subscribe button, hit like if you like the content that you're seeing, and let's go ahead and get into today's subject. All right, so first question, what is ISO? So ISO is basically, in basic terms, is a setting that you actually use to brighten your photos straight out of the camera. As you increase your ISO number, that makes the photo brighter. As you lower it, it makes it darker, obviously. You have to be careful with actually hiring it too high, because this actually introduces noise into your photos, especially when you're working in low light situations, so you have to be careful with that. Actually, ISO can also be used to help you be more flexible with using shutter speed and aperture. Pro tip that I've learned from other photographers by watching YouTube and Instagram and just being taught out in the field is you actually should leave your camera at the lowest possible ISO setting. So I guess with my Canon EOS R, for example, it's like 100 to 200 is pretty much a reasonable ISO number, but you should always play with your aperture and your shutter speed before actually playing with the ISO to make the photos brighter. After you use the aperture and shutter speed, if it's still not bright enough, then you should start bumping up your ISOs just gradually, just so you can make sure that you don't get too much noise in your picture and keep nice, crisp, clear images. All right, so let's go ahead and also, while we're on that subject about the lowest possible ISO, this is also referred to as the base ISO. So your camera's base ISO is basically that setting that is going to guarantee the crispest, most high quality image from your camera, and that's really where you want to keep your camera settings. For aesthetic purposes, some photographers actually like to introduce more noise into their picture. So if you're shooting manual and you just bump up your ISO to get that aesthetic, the aesthetic photo, then that tip isn't for you. But if you're a photographer that's actually trying to get high quality, clear images with as minimal as noise as possible, then you just want to go ahead and stick with your base ISO. And like I said, that's usually around, for Canon EOS R, I think the setting is ISO of 100. It actually depends on the sensor that you have for your camera. Better sensors and better programs and cameras means that this ISO is probably going to be a little bit lower of a number, but it always depends on that. So your Sony A7s, your Canon EOS Rs, your Fujifilm, your higher end Fujifilm mirrorless cameras, they're pretty much going to have low base ISOs, and it's really important if you want clear images that you stick to that. But with that being said, I know that in low light situations, being able to stick to that base ISO is almost nearly impossible, and there are situations where you're going to have to bump that number up just gradually, like I said, after playing with the aperture and shutter speed to make sure that you get these clear images. Let's talk about this. If you actually have problems with your ISO out in the field, let's say you take this wonderful shot and you actually are like, oh man, in camera it looks amazing. Get home, get on Lightroom, and you actually look at it and it sucks. It has noise, it's blurry, or maybe it's not blurry, but maybe it just has a lot of noise in it, or maybe it's too bright or too low. Don't worry, don't fret. You can actually fix this in Lightroom or Photoshop. All you have to do is actually take the noise reduction slider and actually move it up or down to reduce or add noise into your photo. So in post, you can always fix noise, but beware, as all things with that dealing with photography, if you actually move the slider up too high, then it makes your image a lot softer. If you move it back low, it sharpens your image, but it introduces noise, it introduces the original noise back into your photo. So it's always great to always try to get the perfect shot out in the field, but whenever you're dealing with things in Lightroom, unless you just like exaggerated effects, I'm a street photographer, so I pretty much like to stick with everything as shot or in the moment. I don't do too many special effects or anything like that with my pictures, because I'm actually a fan of the reality of the situation. So with that being said, just go ahead and make minimal changes in Lightroom if you can help it. So this is a picture, so let's go to an example so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So here's a picture of the San Francisco Bay Bridge and the different ISOs from left to right. You can see the difference in noise. From the lower the number, the darker the photo is. Some of the highlights are gone and the shadows are in full effect. But as you bump that ISO number up, the picture gets brighter, but at the same time it also introduces that unwanted noise that we were talking about at the beginning of the video. So it's a fine line that you have to pretty much balance in street photography, and sometimes it's hard doing it out there on the fly when you just want to pick up your camera and just shoot. You have to really pay attention to your settings and dial those in, and the more you shoot, believe me, the easier it's going to get, and the more you're going to understand the more you're going to understand the exposure triangle, which is being the correlation between aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. If you have any other questions, definitely hit me up in the comments below, or if somebody else has a question and you're part of this community and you can answer it, go ahead and do that for me. Definitely like this video if you like what you heard, and if you want to see more content like this, which is just basically teaching photography. Like I said, I'm not the most skilled photographer. I'm not a pro by any means. I'm trying to get there. If you want to just show me some love on my Instagram, you can see all my pictures at Ill Will Media. And definitely, like I said, if you like this channel and this content, please subscribe. It will mean a lot to me, or you can definitely join. With that being said, it's your boy Ill Will, and get out there and create, man, and don't let anybody stop you. All right, yeah.